Beth, who's calling us from Florida and who has a workplace issue. Beth, welcome to the program.
Hi, Dr. Cloud.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm better now that I have some food. How's that?
Oh, good.
So, how can I help you?
Well, my question is about a boss that, among other things, he ignores me when I ask to have conversations about certain things like my work setup or compensation. And so I'm kind of at my wit's end with this employer for that reason. And again, there's a few other things that are not okay with me.
What does work setup mean?
Well, for instance, we've been remote since the shutdown, and I just want to discuss moving forward what that would look like and ask him to continue the setup that we've had since the shutdown, which is just working remotely and not having any expectation of being in the office.
Okay.
So when I asked him, I literally said that, just asked for a conversation. That's all. So I didn't ask him for anything specific, and he just never responded.
Okay. And what about the compensation?
And this has happened before. Same thing where I just asked him, hey, can we have I want to revisit these things because now that life is getting back to normal, I want to be able to discuss what things are going to look like moving forward. So I didn't give any specifics. I didn't ask for anything specific. I just asked for a conversation.
And that's it?
Yeah.
And what are the other things? You said there's a few other things that are not okay with you. Anything big?
I would say the biggest thing is his lack of boundaries and his willingness to talk about inappropriate things in the office, like sexually inappropriate things.
Oops. Like what? What's he doing?
He just thinks it's funny to make comments and, just make jokes that are sexually, they're not toward any one person there.
So
but,
it's just kind of workplace stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
And does this bother other people as well?
There's only one other person in the office, and no, she doesn't seem to be bothered by it. That's the only job she's ever had, and she just thinks that's normal, I think, because I've tried to bring certain things up to her about other stuff, and she's just like, oh, I didn't know that was not normal. So
is there any way you can say one of those on the air, or is it too bad?
Oh, like an example of something he said?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a picture for what this.
So one time the AC went out in the office, and he said, well, I guess you girls will have to take your shirts off. Her. And then he said, it's going to get tiddly in here, so jokes like that are just not appropriate for a boss with his employees.
No, and not that funny either. Okay.
Not at all.
So how big is this company? Is there somebody above him? Is there an HR department?
No, he's the owner.
He's the owner.
So it's just me, two people that work in the office, except for the shutdown the past 5 months. So nobody's worked in the office. And then he's got two other part-timers that work remotely.
Okay. And how key are you to his operations?
Pretty key. I split the main workload with my coworker, the other one that works in the office that's been with him for 15 years. So
and how long have you been there?
The workload right down the middle. I've been there 2.5.
2.5. Okay. And Beth, how old are you?
Almost 38.
38. And do you need this job?
Yes, that's the problem. I do. Now is not a time for me to to just quit and have no job. I am looking for something else. I'm working on my resume. I'm moving in
Okay.
that direction. But in the meantime, I wanted to just try to put my best foot forward and try to have a conversation with him and address these, at least the ignoring my request for conversations.
Okay. Well, that's easy to do. I mean, I can tell you how to do that. You probably know how to do that, but I can tell you the way I would do it. But what I would also do is generally when we're trying to discuss something, negotiate something, or whatever, um, it's really difficult to do that on thin ice. You know, if you're trying to, like, because there's going to be some, kind of pushing back and forth on perspectives and needs and wants and this that, and the other. And we need to be standing on really solid ground when we do that. And here's why I say that. You've got to be really, really clear inside of you where your kind of bottom line is. Okay. Now, your
Yeah.
bottom line could be, and uh, I'm not making a joke here. There are some situations where right now it is so critical that you not miss one paycheck, for example, or, that you not be at risk or this that, and the other, that you kind of just operate like you're operating with a lunatic and kind of your bottom line is no matter whether he responds or not, I need this job. I can't screw this up. I guess that's your bottom line. Okay. But you go all the way from there to the other end, which is you've got a robust resume. There's a lot of places you could go. There's a lot of jobs you could have. And you go in and you pretty much hold, all the cards in terms of whether or not you're going to stay. It just depends on whether or not he gives you what you want. Okay. So reality is somewhere in between those two, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I would want you to do is in as much as you can. See, right now, there's no urgency. There's no urgency to this conversation in that you're asking for no changes and he's not making any changes. He's avoiding even the conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now you've got what you want. He's got you remote. You're happy with remote. Nobody's saying anything. I'm not going to disturb this. I don't have to disturb this, right? Now you ask a longer term question of, well, what about the comp issue? And at some point, for whatever reason, you're going to have a timeline on when you need, if you need, is that a wish? Is that a desire? It can make life better, or you have to have more money or you can't survive. There's a shelf life to that. So here's what I would want you to do. I would want you to figure out a conversation shelf life and figure out, given these two, the remote thing, I could let him avoid that forever, because I'm remote. I got what I want. I'm not bringing it up. He's not going to bring it up. You could do that. On the
Well,
comp thing,
he did mention he did want us to come back. He did want me to come back after the kids go to school, and they did go to school last week. So I anticipate
so he
him
hasn't avoided it then. He hadn't
Well,
avoided it then.
he had mentioned that months ago. He had said, I'll let you stay remote until the kids go back to school, but I do want you to come back when they go back to school. So I know eventually he's going to say, okay, this is, we're here now, so come back in. And then at that point, I want to be able to say, hey, I tried to address this with you, a week or two ago, or however long it takes him to get back to me, because I want to talk about, a different, what works for me, basically. And you never responded. What's the deal?
Okay. Well, then and that does put you at risk, right? Unless, are you willing to go back to my previous question? Are you willing, if he says you got to come back in, are you willing to go back in? I mean, he does have that prerogative if the job requires it from
Right,
his
he does.
perspective.
And so I would be willing to, if he were to give me everything else I want, I'd be willing to on a very limited basis. If he wants me to come in full time in the office, which I don't think, that's not what he mentioned back when we talked about it months ago. That's not what he mentioned. So I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm okay with coming in sometimes, but I'm not super comfortable with being around somebody who's so inappropriate. So that was
Well,
kind of a big thing for me, to not have to work with him in person.
that's a different issue, right? That's why I asked, like, how bad are these things? Okay, so here's kind of what I would suggest. You've really got to get clear in yourself. What are your I will walk kind of like triggers? What's going to trigger leaving? What's going to trigger your no, I can't agree to that? And get clear about that. Now, the other thing I was going to tell you is the best you can not be on thin ice is, you said you're working on your resume. I would really, really, really make that parallel number one issue, that I would want to make sure that I've got 5 other options when I talk to him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to make a majorly different kind of conversation if you know where you stand. Now, on the hostile workplace issue, I would address that with him, okay, and I would try to find, address it in a way where, you know, through email or this and the other. Here's what we discussed. Here's what you agreed to. Here's, however you document that, because if it does get to the place where you want to address that, they don't have an HR department, but there are, very good labor attorneys that you could take that to and say, here's the kind of things that are happening. Here's the way I've addressed it. How would you proceed if unless you just want to leave? You could get them a nice letter sent. It says, now that's going to put you in a different kind of relationship. Now you're in an adversarial relationship. My point is, you got to figure out how far you want to take what. And so when you address something with somebody, if they don't hear it, then you got to figure out, well, what are my limits? Do I continue just having to put up with this? Do I bend, or do I leave? Or do I say, if you don't stop this, then this is a hostile workplace and I will do something about it? Do you have a firm limit or boundary like that? I hate to go that route because that puts you in an adversarial relationship. I'd like to see you solve it in a better way. But I really want you to find out what your bottom line here is. Now, back to your original question, here's the way I would address it. I'd say, boss, we've worked together for a while. I think you know my work. I think you know I'm committed. I want to do everything you need to get this job done, and I will continue to do that. You have said that you don't want me to continue to work remotely after the kids. I asked you about it several months ago, several weeks ago. That date is coming up, and I really, in order to figure out what I'm going to do, I really need to know where we stand on this. And I'd like to have a conversation because I've got some suggestions about how I can meet all of your needs and still have a lot of remote time. And I'd like to have that conversation. So you address the conversation in addressing, I'm not going to not do the work you need. I'm committed to that. I want us to talk about how you will be assured that I can do it remotely, and how much remote feels comfortable for both of us. And I would address it in terms of meeting his needs, because that's what he's worried about.
So my next point of contact you would recommend would be me reaching out to him, sending him another email, only this time with more details about what I'm asking for, versus directly addressing the fact that he ignored me.
Not exactly. I wouldn't get into details until that's more of a negotiation, that you want to get into the details after he has agreed to come to the table. What I'm addressing right now is, like you're saying, his avoidance. And so, but I want you to address the avoidance with a clear documentation. I talked to you about this a while back. Okay. At that point, I was waiting to hear back from you. I haven't heard back from you. You did mention that you wanted it to change. You wanted a change coming when the kids go back to school. I've been asking for a conversation. I haven't gotten it. Now we're a couple of weeks out, and I really need to know so that I can begin to prepare. And so I'd like to get together and discuss how we can continue my work and continue to meet all your needs with, how I work remotely, or just have that conversation. So you're addressing the avoidance, but you're asking for, and then if he avoids it again, then your case even gets stronger.
Mm-hmm.
You can push harder. Say, I've asked 3 times. Follow me?
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what, Beth? I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the answer to this, I think. But if you roll the clock forward a year from now, do you want to be working for this guy?
No.
Okay. Then let's make our real job getting ready.
Yeah.
Find something else. All right. This guy sounds like, I mean, if he's going to make bad jokes, make one that's funny. I'm kidding. He shouldn't make bad
Right.
jokes unless
No.
people don't feel comfortable. He's not even funny. Okay. I hope that helps you.
It
Continue
does.
to
Yeah.
address it, request what you want, request it in a way that meets his needs, and say, but I have to know, and just continue to do that. Okay. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
your call.